Welcome to this Wednesday, October 25, 2023, regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Sequoia Union High School District. The meeting is called to order. We will be shortly recessing a closed session, but we will now take any comments from the public about the closed session items. Do we have any members of the public on Zoom wishing to make a public comment? Okay, seeing that we have no commenters, we will recess to closed session and return at 6 p.m. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to this Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Sequoia Union High School District. We opened the meeting at 4:30. We recessed to closed session, and now we are reconvening to public session with a welcome and explanation to the audience. So I'll say welcome, audience. Roll call, please, Laura.
Student Trustee Yuryev.
Here.
Student Trustee Argawal is absent. Trustee Nori.
Here.
Trustee Koo.
Here.
Trustee Dubois. Here. Vice President Stevenson.
Here.
President Ginn.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a report out on closed session. The board approved 3 settlements in closed session. The first settlement is settlement agreement 2023-2024-7, which is approved by a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. The second was 2023-2024-8, which was approved 5 in favor and 0 opposed. And the third was 2023-2024-9, which was approved 5 in favor and 0 opposed. Okay, the next item is our special recognitions.
I have something to read. Hold on, Principal Gale. Okay. At this time, we would like to recognize some fabulous student leaders and staff from East Palo Alto Academy and supporting partners. Please welcome Principal Amaka Guillaume, who will give more details and a quick update on EPAA, which is kind of something new we are adding to the board meetings. Each board meeting, we do have a principal that's on deck that usually has some of the recognitions. Sometimes the district also has recognitions, but we also want to use this opportunity with the principal joining us to showcase their site and to take a little bit of an opportunity to brag about their site. So welcome.
Good evening, Superintendent Leach, Cabinet, and Board of Trustees, and incredible teachers that are here in the room with us today. I get butterflies, but having all of you here gives me extra butterflies. Okay, so I want to first thank our awesome parents who represent our school site council and our DLAC. I don't know if Mr. Gouveia and Ms. Askew are in this crowd. I didn't see you. Just want to take a moment to recognize Catherine Askew as our school site council leader. She's the most awesome parent. I met her while I was doing crossing guard duty in front of the buses, and she thought I was a volunteer, and she gave me a gift card. I want you all to know I put it in the teacher raffle that we do every time we have staff meetings. So I did not keep the gift card. And then she became a parent. So that was awesome. And then Mr. Gabriel Gouveia has been a longtime parent, over a decade of a parent that I've worked with, and he represents our DLAC. So I want to recognize the two of them who are amazing. I want to also recognize our students who put on an event that I'm glad that this will give me time to show you at least 3 minutes of the event. This is our Latinx Student Union, made possible by an incredible 12th grader who came out of his shell because of wonderful educators like you, Jose Carvajal, and other leaders who made the incredible day possible: Danae Ochoa, Alejandra Herrera, Cristal Lozano. They're awesome leaders. You would love to be their teacher. Christian Ramirez, Esmeralda. Oh, sorry. And now our classified staff. who also make this awesome event possible. And you'll see in a second a little clip about it. Esmeralda Sanchez, we call them the rock stars because that's what they are. Viridiana Luna Sanchez, our steppies, our future teachers, Victor Suarez, and our custodian, otherwise known as Mama Cecilia, who makes everything possible at EPAA, Cecilia Aguilar. And then, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the teacher who took on LSU and Fiestas Patrias this year, Mr. Oram Ramirez. Oram, can I take a picture with your certificate and sign? With Arthur is going to take our picture. Are you going to come? And maybe Josue, por favor, if we can show the video of Fiestas Patrias while we're doing this, so you all can see what I'm so proud of. It's slide 4. Oh, okay. Are we doing? Okay, what's the big deal? This is the big deal. There's no sound. No sound. Okay, imagine music. Incredible music. And in the middle is our steppy Victor Suarez. That's Alonso. These are our bailadores folclóricos. And all the families come and they bring their little ones. They bring food to share. Community-based organizations come and they celebrate with us. And more music. And this is the quietest student. You know how many actors have stage fright, but then when they do their thing, they just shine. Oh, there's Mr. Ramirez with his little one, Soleil. Oh, that's the Grito contest. Maybe that's good. We don't hear that. These are actually MA students and now Foothill College. Yeah, I see you out there. Look at that beautiful, beautiful piñata. That was made by one of the Steppi's fathers. So a Stanford student teacher. In the middle, you'll see in a second here, Mr. Chuck, who likes to also dance with the students. So it was a beautiful, vibrant event made possible because of just the community coming together to celebrate Fiestas Patrias. I think the thing that we've made a lot of growth, and Mr. Ramirez takes a lot of energy and pride in, is ensuring our students understand that it is South America, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean. Like, what is Fiestas Patrias celebrating? It's decolonization of the entire planet. And so that's just a great celebration. And I wish it had music, but it doesn't. So Mr. Ramirez, that was his work. That was his work. All right. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. Malo Elele, Talofa, welcome and bienvenidos. A little update from good old East Palo Alto Academy. Uh-oh, I think we might need to. Here we go. The reason why all of those students are not here is because they also organized a community goblin walk. So this is what they're doing right now. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's right. We literally have a, what is this called in English? Wheelbarrow. We have a wheelbarrow of candy to give out to the students. So here's our beloved little babies. And this is Mr. Ramirez with his family from last year. Students came, alumni came, their little ones came. And so that's where everyone is right now. They're celebrating the community of East Palo Alto with a goblin walk. I also wanted to take a moment to share that one of the things we're constant, you all know more than anyone, is time for teachers to be together in planning, thoughtful planning. And to make that possible, we worked with our community partners. It was an incredible, you know how every best solution is one that has come together in an organic way when all people bring their minds together. And so we went to the students and we said, community engagement, This is something we want from our LCAP goal number 4. And they said they wanted to meet more people. They wanted to meet other students with the same interests. They wanted more clubs, more opportunities to do art, music, dance, and just more authentic ways to connect. They gave some feedback on our goals that are part of our LCAP action plan. More feedback from parents, teachers, staff, students, and their families, which I guess are the parents. And we came up with what is called the Road to Legendary. So 7 days out of the year, we have an alternative schedule, and the awesome community-based organizations of East Palo Alto. In fact, those of you who were on the, I don't know if Shanice, you did this, the Dream, this President Obama put out that grant, and you could be a dream city after the Harlem Children's Zone. We didn't get it in East Palo Alto. We worked really hard for it. We didn't get it because we have too many community-based organizations. And proof positive is we put a call out in the community, said we need help. Our students want more. We're such a small school. We can't give as many electives. And they said, okay, let's do it. So without a single penny, they volunteer their time to work with our students 7 times a year. The BGCP, the YMCA, Street Code, YCS, Silicon Valley Urban Debate League, Live in Peace, Stanford Haas Center, all come. BGCP offers 7 classes, everything from post-secondary pathways for our serious students who even on their free time want to talk about college, to cosmetology, our artists in the space, our cooking artists, everything to indoor soccer and volleyball and the tech center. Then the YMCA, now this is something that when we talk about social capital, being able to swim is a privilege. And we took kids to Guatemala and their free day was supposed to be swimming in a lake. Well, out of the 12 kids we brought, only 1 knew how to swim. And that sat with me in a certain kind of way. And I reached out to the YMCA and I said, would it ever be possible to teach swimming to our students during these 7 days? And they said, yes. And thank God Bonnie said, okay. And so we have swimming lessons. We have swimming lessons thanks to the YMCA. We have students who are so excited to learn how to play guitar and ukulele thanks to Epicenter Arts. And this is our first class. We have a DJ, which actually was too technical, so it only did 1 session and got shut down because feedback matters. Youth Community Service did service at the school next door. They did service for community-based organizations in our area, for the homeless, for pets in need. We are still working on this beautiful mural in honor of our student that passed. We also had a DIY station through YCS. Street Code, this one, I couldn't believe how many kids want to do creative collaboration and entrepreneurship. And they've been passionate about that. Live in Peace has their little bike shop. And thank you again for approving the field trip over to the bike shop. And our future lawyers are there with Silicon Valley Urban Debate League. And this is them in action. And so yes, so I cannot thank the community-based organization of East Palo Alto supporting this work and giving those options to our students. We also have done really cool things like tonight, the Goblin Walk. Our teachers are going above and beyond meeting with their individual advisees, doing their student-led conferences. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of the film Translators. It is a 20-minute documentary. I highly recommend it. We are doing a movie night for families on November 17th at 6 p.m. It's a powerful short film directed by Emmy Award winner Rudy Valdez. It sheds light on a vital but often overlooked the role of the bilingual children play in their families, the weight of having to translate for something so serious as a medical appointment. I don't think we have time to show this 1-minute trailer, but I do recommend that you look at it. We are partnering with Nuestra Casa, US Bank, and Rosalie Rondeau Center so that families, after seeing this, can sign up to learn English as adults and be inspired to do that for their children. Sorry, there goes the preview. So thank you. Gracias, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, the next item is approval of tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any comments or questions about tonight's agenda? Do you have a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Shanice, you go to the agenda. Thank you. Okay, the next item is public comment. So public comment for items that are not on our agenda. Our board policy provides for up to 10 minutes of comment on any item and up to 3 minutes of comment per speaker, but the board has discretion to extend the amount of time. We may choose to lessen the number of minutes depending on how many people wish to comment. So what we'll do is ask anybody in the Zoom audience who wishes to make a public comment to please raise your Zoom hand now, and anyone in the audience here live that's interested in making a comment. If you haven't already, please turn in a comment card to Laura. The comment cards are available near the door there. Maybe you're all familiar with how to do this, but just in case anyone's new, if you are here and wish to make a comment, please turn in a comment card. And if you are on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand now. So I'll ask Laura or Crystal if one of you wants to take a picture or write down the names of the Zoom hands that we have, and then we will.
I got it.
Okay, you got, so we
Yes.
have 5 on Zoom.
And we have 15 comment cards in person.
Okay, so we have 20 total comment cards. I mean, so I propose we extend beyond the 3 minutes, and I'd recommend 2 minutes per person. So we'll do, it'd be up to 40 minutes of public comment, but if anyone has any other ideas.
Sounds good to me.
Sophic, does that work for you? Shanice? Okay, so we're going to do 2 minutes per person. We have 20 comments. We'll do the people who are here in person first, and then we will do the Zoom audience. So Laura, if you could lead us through public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First up, we have Jonda Ferris de Gomez.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to say so if you could feel free to walk up and while I'm giving the explanation of how the public comment works. So while you're speaking in the live audience, there will be a countdown timer on the screens. And when the countdown timer gets to 0, then your time is up and we ask you to cede the microphone to the next person. And if you're on the Zoom audience, you will see a countdown timer available on the screen. So you'll have 2 minutes and you'll know when your time is up. And Laura, if we could let the next in line know who they are. And we have a practice here that there may be comments that you agree with and comments that you disagree with. And we ask that everybody just hears all of the comments respectfully without any cheering, jeering, booing, clapping. Basically that we sit and respectfully listen to each other so that we can all hear all of the comments. Thank you.
I'm going to take advantage and just get started. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jonda Ferris de Gomez. I'm a teacher here in Sequoia Union. I'd like to start by thanking the amazing high school math teachers I was fortunate to have, especially Marsha Cross, who made geometry magical. These dedicated women wisely taught me that a single number doesn't tell a story. You must always compare it to something else in order to get a feel for its true value. So I've followed their advice and have spent some time this past week comparing numbers in preparation for tonight. And the story they tell is that the idea that arguably the highest paying public high school district on the peninsula, Mountain View, Los Altos, sets an unattainable standard of compensation is simply not true. It's time to dispel that myth once and for all. It turns out that our district has more than double the number of owner-occupied homes whose median value is exactly the same as Mountain View, Los Altos at just over $2 million. Both of our districts are basic aid districts, meaning that the vast bulk of the funding for our annual budgets comes from local revenues, primarily property taxes. Sequoia Union serves just under twice the number of students, but when the two districts are scaled for size, we have a very similar student-to-teacher ratio, and we spend relatively the same amount per student. The most significant economic difference between our two districts is how much they pay their certificated staff, even though their total budget is over $89 million smaller than ours. Sequoia Union pays its teachers an average of 26.2% less than Mountain View, Los Altos in all steps on the salary scale. And in 2 of those steps, numbers 2 and 4, the difference actually reaches 30% for the same years of experience and hours of formal education or continuing education units. Do you understand the kind of impact that large a difference has on the quality of life of this district's teachers and their families? But Mountain View, Los Altos isn't alone. Eastside Union High School District, a revenue limit district in East San Jose, With median property values at literally half of those in our district, has a teacher's salary
Thank you. Sorry, your time is up.
Again, any outbursts or clapping or jeering, because we may have some that you disagree with or some that you agree with. It just asks that we hear everyone's comments respectfully. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Lisa Otsuka, then Francine Andrade.
Thank you. And I am so happy to be here. It's like a rare unicorn sighting to get me away from my house and away from the grading like it is for so many of us. But I feel like the situation is dire and it makes me feel so happy to see so many people come out and support tonight. I know that the district is only as strong as the teachers and the counselors and everybody who's working hands-on with the students. And I just want to say I've been teaching for 33 years. And this job has actually never gotten easier, unless I'm just doing it really wrong. But today at lunch, we were talking and we were saying, who remembers the last time you've taken a day off? And people were like a full day off? Yeah, like a full day off. And nobody could remember a day. We talked about going home and making meals that are more based on expediency than actual, satisfying nutrition, because we're trying so hard. We don't want to miss a journal or something we could be correcting or grading for our students. So I think that we're helping students navigate a really difficult world right now, where critical thinking is kind of at an all-time low and judgment is really high. We are talking to students and seeing students every day whose family members are living in dangerous places, who come with so many concerns. And it is not unusual. Today, I stayed 2 hours after school talking to students who wanted to talk about their concerns and their issues. And I think that this has been the most tremendous profession. But I also think that I talk to too many people who feel like their time and their efforts aren't always as valued financially. And I hope that we can change that. And we want to feel respected. We want to do the best by our students. And we thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. After Francine, we'll have Karina Escobar.
Hi, good evening. My name's Francine Andrade, and I'm a school counselor at Menlo Atherton High School. I've worked in this district for many years, and I help students and families from all different backgrounds. I write letters of recommendation for students who have challenged themselves taking the highest quality classes and very challenging curriculum, extracurriculars, to attending an IEP meeting this week for a student who's in intervention ELA, the lowest level we have for our readers, and he's struggling in there. And we're trying to figure out, how to give him more testing and more support. I'm also calling students, families who are newcomers, who are struggling with attendance. We've seen after COVID a very difficult situation where it has impacted our students. They're struggling with mental health and other issues. And I just want to say that I've worked with very dedicated colleagues, and we all work very hard. We're starting to implement Tier 1 interventions and implementing those. And now we're going to start implementing Tier 2 lessons. And I also want to mention that inflation is real, and it has impacted all of us, every one of us in this room and beyond. And I truly do trust that our district can compensate us for 8% the first year and 7% the second year, which is what our union is asking for. And I support that, and I believe and trust that this district can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. After Karina will be Stephanie Cuff Alvarado.
Hello, my name is Karina Escobar, and I'm a counselor at Menlo Atherton High School. And I just want to start with, I've been doing this for 27 years, 21 at MA. I've heard since COVID started, we appreciate you. Thank you for doing what you do. Just 2 weeks ago, a board member said, I hear you, I see you, I appreciate you. This is not about appreciation. This is about compensation. Appreciation doesn't pay my gas. Appreciation doesn't pay my rent. Appreciation doesn't pay the cost of living in here. The dollar decreases 2% every year. The cost of living increases 3% every year. It's an average of $120,000 for a family of 4 to barely meet the cost of living in the Bay Area. We're not asking for much. If we look at that, we're asking for 10%. We asked for 10% for a 2-year contract. If we deduct how much the value of the dollar and the increase of the cost of living, you're getting a good deal for 8% that we've gone down to. Yet you insult us by suggesting a 4.75 increase. That's below of what we need to survive in the Bay Area. Last week, 2 weeks ago, it was mentioned that teachers were leaving. Yes, they're moving to where the cost of living is less. They might not get paid as much, but it equals out. They actually come out ahead. We have not experienced a shortage of teachers like some other districts have. If we continue the way we are, we will. Mountain View, with my 27 years of experience, I go down to 12 years experience, I still make 40 grand more. If my husband finds out this information, you know what he's gonna say? What the hell are you still doing there? Because my retirement is based on what I make the most.
Thank you. I'm sorry, your time is up. After Stephanie, we'll have Betsy
I've
Snow.
got 2 requests. One, if we could please refrain from outbursts and clapping. And 2, I think someone's got a speaker on. I'm hearing a little bit of echo. So if someone's got their sound on their computer, if you don't mind muting, because I'm hearing a little bit of echo. And it's getting a little bit of feedback. So if you have your computer playing the Zoom, it's creating a little feedback. If you could just mute. Thank you.
My name is Stephanie Cuff Alvarado. I'm a social science teacher at Menlo Atherton. This is my 6th year teaching at MA and 10th year of teaching overall. Additionally, I've earned 60 post-grad units, but I live alone without a spouse or a partner. Therefore, when I had to move this year, I learned that I qualify for Section 8 housing. My salary was determined to be so low for the local area that I'm entitled to government assistance in order to stay within the community I serve. And my story is not singular, and it should not come as a surprise, as we've heard. Consequently, it's my opinion that the district's ability to achieve $40 million reserve is not the result of thoughtful financial decisions, but rather the district's willingness to take advantage of its teachers who have outside financial support and to exploit the deep love that all of us have for what we do. It doesn't take much effort to see and feel the deep commitment of our teachers and staff in this district. And I will give credit to the district. I do think they recognize this because there's evidence of this recognition, which can be found in the apparent gamble that the district seems to be willing to make. The gamble that teachers are willing to show up every day with their best teaching despite not being afforded a fair wage, simply because the district knows we would do almost anything for our students. This gamble is a form of toxic positivity that weaponizes our love and commitment against us and strongly suggests that the district's dedication to equity and student success is merely performative. Furthermore, to refuse adequate pay is not just demoralizing, it's in direct contradiction to the governance team goals clearly listed on the district's webpage. You cannot have, quote, innovative quality instruction without quality teachers. You cannot, quote, have design and implement meaningful structures that achieve equity without meaningfully and equitably supporting your teachers. You cannot provide, quote, appropriate academic, behavioral, and socioeconomic support without appropriately supporting your teachers. By ignoring the lived experiences of your teachers and all the data that proves increased teacher pay leads to improved student achievement, you are repeatedly communicating that your personal comfort is more important than reality. So I ask you to challenge this, to show that you are different, to show that you are beyond this current perception, and that you are the people that.
Thank you. Next, we have Betsy Snow and John McBlair will follow.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Snow, and I'm approaching almost 20 years in this district. And I started at MA in 2005, and that was after an 8-year stint in SUHSD. This was the golden district. We were promised salad bars, and while it didn't disappoint, maybe, We found this was the Golden District. We had opportunities for professional development. We had opportunities to thrive. I left the English department and pursued my art credential and was welcomed first by Leanne Strube in the English department, then by Mike Tilson in the art department. It was a place to grow as an educator. I now work at Sequoia as the library media specialist, where I've been able to find the perfect marriage of all of those things. But what hasn't remained in these 20 years are my friends who could not afford to stay. It's the young teachers who you cannot emulate with that energy, that freshness right out of educational programs, and they can't afford to live here. So they move away. They spend hours commuting. They deserve the chances that we had to make it here. Now, I coupled up early. My husband's also an educator. So we were able to make it work. We live in Redwood City. And again, we're very fortunate. Our son now goes to Sequoia, where I see these teachers and I want them to feel supported and encouraged to remain in this profession, especially as it gets harder and harder. And as we all know, last year, it got really hard for me, and I still show up every day. And I want to thank all of these educators in the room who stood behind me as a librarian, with the librarian team as well. And we deserve that respect and at least a COLA or a cost of living adjustment to keep up with this outrageous inflation. It's only fair, and we must be competitive with districts around us to maintain these experiences for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. After John, we'll have Gordon Budimirovic and then Jason Hunt.
Weeks before the pandemic hit, I informed my principal and department chair that I was applying to better paying areas. I spoke with MVLA teachers that were former Sequoia employees. One of them said I would have stayed at Sequoia, but I wanted to buy a house. District reps need to stop bringing up San Mateo's pay scale. That's not how competition works. Look at Sacramento, Stockton, and MVLA, the places our colleagues are leaving for. We have teachers in this district that have worked for 8 years and still make less than MVLA's long-term subs. Don't want to start a riot. I know of at least 5 teachers that have applied to better paying districts last year, and a few of them left, and we will keep leaving. And sure, people will replace us, but I really want to highlight why all that instability is bad for our kids. Properly onboarding our new teaching staff, no matter how experienced they are, is a practically impossible task. Just ask Betsy Snow. I met with her after school every day for basically 2 years. If you value alignment of performance expectation, having fairly similar grade distribution, having robust extracurriculars, that all takes time, that all takes years to get used to. People moving away wastes all of that. We need to be moved by that loss. The domino effects on other teachers that stay can be even worse because we all have to move and adjust our teaching load at the last minute to accommodate for that. And the kids know when we're improvising. So when you're thinking about how to spend your surplus, please be conservative. Maybe a new district position will make a noticeable impact, but maybe it won't. Maybe a new technology service or consultant group will move the needle, but maybe it won't. All of these are risky and experimental. But we do know that a stable teaching staff and a salary that lure strong teachers from elsewhere is the safest investment with the most likely returns for our kids. Don't gamble with public money, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Budimirovic. I'm an English teacher at Woodside High School, and I echo my colleagues who have previously voiced their support for the salary demands from the SDTA. Everything they've mentioned, the inflation, the cost of living in our community, the increased demands on our teachers and staff is real. These factors impact us as staff members, and in turn, they impact our students. One of the district's stated goals is to, quote, design and implement a highly effective recruitment, development, and retention system to attract and retain top talent, end quote. These goals are admirable. They sound great, but they're not achievable unless that desired top talent is properly compensated. Our students deserve the very best educators to help them succeed. Remember that for every accomplishment touted by our district, for every successful student that we happily celebrate, there's a teacher or staff member who inspired, helped, taught, and sacrificed for those successes and those students. Thank yous and appreciation from our students and their families mean the world to us. From the district, however, they are not enough. From the district, we expect adequate and fair compensation for our work and sacrifices. And in order for our compensation to be fair, the district has to take into account the cost of living in our community. It's as simple as that. The median price of a home around here is $2 million. This is why the district's prior salary offers are unacceptable. We are professionals, but we're not being treated as such. We are the most student-facing part of our district, but the district's salary offers clearly communicate that they do not see us as a priority. If you care about the continued success of our students, then recognize that teachers and staff are the primary stakeholders assuring our students' academic and socio-emotional success.
Thank you. After Jason, we'll have Chris Beatley-Hagler and Elias Moring.
Good evening. My name is Jason Hunt, and I stand here as both an educator and a dedicated advocate for the future of our district. As I enter my 10th year in education, my 4th year teaching English at Menlo Atherton High, I am deeply disheartened by the failure of the board to invest in our teachers and by extension in the students that we serve. This evening, instead of drafting the half dozen letters of recommendation I should be writing, or grading the stack of 90 AS English 2 essays that await me on my dining table, I am here at 6:40 p.m. advocating for a salary increase. This task is not just demanding, it is disheartening. It is dehumanizing to stand before my colleagues, students, and their parents trying to justify why the teachers of this district are clamoring for a wage that barely ensures our basic livelihood. It is worth highlighting the district's history of offering incremental salary increases that don't even cover inflation. This practice has resulted in a growing exodus of tenured teachers as they search for more favorable employment opportunities elsewhere. And to be perfectly candid, those opportunities are 10 minutes down the road. Palo Alto is offering me $7,000 more to teach in their district. Mountain View, Los Altos, $44,000 more than what you are willing to pay me. If this trend persists, it will lead to the bankruptcy of our district in terms of teacher retention and the maturation of talent. In closing, I believe that making our teachers a top priority in our budget allocation is not only the right thing to do, but also a wise investment in the future of our district. I would like to draw your attention to the unprecedented number of union strikes taking place across our country. Recently, San Francisco Unified School District certificated staff voted with 97% approval to go on strike. They got their 15% raise. It would be a shame if the teachers in our district felt that such drastic measures were their last resort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Josue, and thank you, onlinestopwatch.com. We all have things we love most about October, especially getting our property tax. I was looking at mine when it came in the mail. I noticed 51% goes to fund local public education. It's a great allocation of my money. I'm in full support of that. And I think that does provide the best for the students, right? When that money is used in the right way. I don't think sitting in a reserve account is the best way to allocate that money. And I would just ask a couple of things. To whom it may concern, right? The next time that y'all are at the bargaining table or whoever is there, it would be the same things that I ask of my students at Redwood High School. We be respectful. We show up as our best selves and we do the right thing. I was able to buy that house because of generational wealth. My parents helped us out with the down payment. I think it's really impossible to do so without that. And I think I'm a good teacher. I think that my collectively bargained evaluation process would say the same. But, my background experience does not necessarily reflect the student experience in this district, right? If it is really a goal, which I think it's been in the LCAP, to attract and retain quality and diverse educators, we have to provide competitive, livable wages. At Redwood last year, 3 educators left the area, citing in large part their inability to afford to stay in the area long term. A lot of our colleagues have shared the impact on the students that we know about. So that's my message. Again, Laura, Josue, thanks y'all.
Thank you, Chris. After Elias, we'll hear from Julie Martin, then Marilyn Travis.
Hi, my name is Elias. I teach English and ELD at Woodside High School. It's my 3rd year here, but I've been living in the Bay for 10 years. And prices have gone up. Prices have risen. I can attest, I do not have generational wealth. My mom worked unemployed to raise me, and I managed to go to Stanford. And here I am. You know, I am like most people. I want to settle down in the area. I want to be able to buy a house, but I can attest that without generational wealth, that is impossible, given the current salary that I have. I want to be able to give back to my mother, who is now 70 years old. And instead, I've had to make some compromises. I've had to live with 3 other teachers just to make ends meet. I had to move further away to afford splitting a 1-bedroom apartment in San Mateo. I commute 40 minutes and I carpool to save money. And my story is not like other people who have spoken today. But I would like to think that I have a unique perspective, that I can set myself apart because of my experiences and my perspective. I'm young, I'm fresh out of Stanford. I'm the only Latinx teacher left in my department after somebody left halfway through last year. And I want to thank the district for funding my induction, for spending hundreds of dollars on me in my continuing education units and my professional development. And I'm especially grateful for that because I will not hesitate to take my unique perspective as well as the valuable skills that you've paid for, and I will take them to a district where I do not have to choose between working for a community I love and affording the cost of living.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm not young like my colleague from Woodside, but I also don't have intergenerational wealth. And I'd love to talk about how the cost of living increase is not, that you guys have offered is not nearly in line with inflation. You guys already know that, so I don't have to dwell upon it. The price of gas, the price of whether it's PG&E or at the tank, the price of food, the price of bread, it's not. So let's not dwell on it, right? But what I would like to talk about is that having raised 2 kids, being a head of household in this district, living in San Francisco, commuting an hour to be able to afford as well. And I raised my 2 kids in a small bedroom with somebody renting the living room because that's all I could afford, and eventually got to the point where I could have, not have a living room. But the idea of owning a house was completely out of the picture. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago only, I found out about the down payment assistant loan program in San Francisco. Applied for it. It's a lottery system to get $200,000 for a down payment for people who can't afford it. I qualified for low income as a 20-year veteran in our district, low income under HUD standards with 2 kids as a head of household. And a year later, I won the lottery and I got it. But I had to turn it down because the mortgages that were offered, even though it was like, okay, I'll have to find something on the edge of Daly City, $800,000, what the mortgages would be, there was absolutely no way I could pay that on my salary. So I had to turn that down. We are not paid Bay Area standards to rise above low income. We as teachers deserve more.
Thank you. After Marilyn, we'll hear from JP Nelson, then Rianita Burns.
Good evening. My name is Marilyn Travis, and I am a proud teacher at East Palo Alto Academy. I'm also a proud member of SDTA, and I feel privileged to be able to teach history at EPAA alongside some amazing colleagues. This year alone, almost 20% of our teachers are pursuing national board certification, including 2/3 within our history department. This is in addition to all of our regular teaching duties. Our district has a responsibility to recruit, retain, adequately support, and fairly compensate all of their employees. We could be anywhere, but last time that I checked, we choose to be here. I am here tonight to share my thoughts on the recent negotiations between our union and our district. I was disappointed to learn that the best proposal our district has been willing to offer so far is an on-schedule salary raise of 7.25% over 2 years. And I want to publicly thank our union's bargaining team for their diligence in negotiating a contract that ensures union members are fairly compensated for all of the incredible and inspiring work that we do. I believe SDTA's proposal of 15% on-schedule salary raise over 2 years is a much more appropriate and reasonable standpoint, especially given the $40 million in unrestricted funds with which our district ended last year. I strongly encourage the board to better guide the district's bargaining team in carefully reconsidering their approach to negotiations. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
No, you guys stand over there. Cat. I don't know if you can see Cat. My name is Rianita Burns. I want to talk to you about impact. I graduated MA in 2003. And if you taught at MA from 99 to 2003, can you either stand up or wave your hand? Miss Stroop, I said, is that Miss Stroop? I didn't have Miss Stroop as a teacher, but her impact was lasting. You had my cousin Jamila Scott for AP English. And the most important thing that I want to let people know is that I am from East Palo Alto. So I think it was you when you were speaking about all of the community support. I've worked with Live in Peace. I've worked with Built to Last. I've been an academic counselor, advocating for students to get to class at Menlo Atherton. I've been an avid tutor. Right now, I currently work as a career development specialist. And what I want to say is that without teachers, it says a quality cost of money. I have these teachers to come up with me. If you've been in the school district for over 10 years, please stand up. If you've been with the school district for over 4 years, please stand up. If you are working in the school district, please stand up. And the reason why I say that is because I was at MA all 4 years. And if someone doesn't have a teacher for a long enough time, you can't have that impact to still be a part of the community. I have been a part of the community. Paying your teachers is so important because you never know who will be the next person of impact. So thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is JP Nelson.
Evening, everybody. Yeah, I'm the proud parent of 2 district graduates and 1 current student, and I'm the very, very proud teacher of the EL, of one of the teachers in the EL program at MA. And so I'm really pleased. I'm glad that we got this. It's so great to see so many friends. Hey. I'm really pleased to see so many friends here today. And these are colleagues that I've shared really valuable experiences with. And many more would love to be here. But, you know, they're coaching our teams late into the night, getting ready for championships, and others are helping students in dozens of other activities. And so they would like to be here, but see, they're working for our students right now. I'm also not here to reminisce about the past. I'd like to ask you about the future. The last 2 years of inflation have gravely affected many of our retirement portfolios. As I've just reached 50, I've become acutely aware of the value of contributing to our various retirement vehicles, and many of these are predicated on our current salary. These aren't affected by one-time payouts. We need our salaries to reflect our value so that we can prepare for our futures while we prepare SUHSD students for theirs. We are looking towards the future. Are you? Please don't force us to go elsewhere to do what we need to do for our families. Please show us that we have a future here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to the chair, we'll now switch to our Zoom audience. First up is SDTA Candace.
Good evening. My name is Candace Bowles. I'm seeing that the counter is not ticking down. Does that mean nobody can hear me? Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Candace Bowles. I am the History Department Chair at Menlo Atherton. I spoke at the last board meeting regarding the constant attrition of history teachers at MA due to the expensive cost of living in the Bay Area. I'm here to provide you with an update. Last Friday, Cassia Bradbury informed me she would be leaving MA at the end of the semester to move to LA. Her primary reason is cost of living in the Bay Area. Cassia is an 11-year veteran teacher at MA. She teaches world history and US history for the Computer Academy. The Computer Academy is a program that targets students who may struggle in high school and need intervention and extra support. Many of these students in the Computer Academy are students of color. Many are lower socioeconomic status. Most come from families who traditionally do not attend college. Anyone who knows Cassia knows that this decision to leave MA did not come easily. Cassia thinks of her Computer Academy students as an extension of her own family, and her students often think of Cassia as their second mom. When she broke the news to her students this week, there were tears of sadness and tears of frustration. I share in those students' sadness and frustration because I know that Cassia is just the first of many teachers who will leave MA and the Sequoia District this year. It's too late to keep Cassia at MA, but it's not too late to stem the tide of the exodus of high-quality teachers from this district. I implore you to work with the SDTA bargaining team to give Sequoia educators the raise we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next two speakers, SDTA Nancy Day, then Darcy Book.
Via Zoom to ask for the district access the raise requested. Our SDT does diligently in faith to help staff.
Nancy, sorry, you're picking up.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Our SDTA reps negotiated diligently in good faith to help bring our salaries to a level that will allow us to remain in the Bay Area. What the district offered did not meet even the cost of living increase and frankly was insulting. Before Sequoia, I taught in the SF Unified School District at Burton High School in Hunters Point. I left a principal I loved, colleagues who remain friends to this day, and students who deserve good, experienced teachers because I was barely making ends meet. When I had to tell my principal, Mrs. Towell, she encouraged me to, quote, go where you can get paid what you are worth. I wish I could pay you that much, end quote. When I arrived at Sequoia with 10 years experience, I was amazed at all of the support in the form of food, training, supplies, resources, connections to the community, and salary and benefits. 23 years ago, that was a salary raise of $17,000 in full benefits for my husband, who is self-employed. I was not only able to pay my bills, but I was able to get out of some debt. I felt respected as a professional and able to devote more time to bringing an equitable yet challenging curriculum to all of the diverse students at MA. I was encouraged to complete my national board certification, and despite the additional cost of the commute from San Francisco, I was able to balance not only my budget, but develop and deliver strong curriculum. However, in recent increase in the cost of living, I've been facing some of the same challenges before. Luckily, I live in a rent-controlled apartment, but remain classified as just low income. This raise is desperately needed if the district is interested in keeping well-qualified, dedicated teachers in a time where there are.
Thank you. I'm sorry, your time was up. Darcy Book, then Pablo Aguilera.
Hello, my name is Darcy Book, and I'm a third-year teacher at Woodside. I teach freshman English, English support, and AVID, and I'm here to ask that you prioritize teacher compensation. Even though I am at the top of the salary schedule for a third-year teacher, I am still unable to afford living in the Bay Area. Until this summer, I lived in a home with 5 housemates, until I was able to graduate to my current living situation with 2 housemates. I'm 29, and at this point, it's impossible to imagine affording even a studio apartment. How am I supposed to imagine a future in which I could raise a family and invest a home here? I can feel myself being pushed out of the profession, and I am not alone. In Woodside's English department, we continue to lose teachers every year, particularly new teachers, either to areas with a lower cost of living or to districts with higher salaries. This is no surprise. Losing new teachers hurts the district, as the district repeatedly forfeits their financial investment in the TIPS induction program. Losing new teachers hurts students, families, and the community at large because of the upheaval in the staff community and subsequent need to train new hires. In order to attract and retain high-quality teachers, with an emphasis on retain, we need to see substantial change in the salary schedule. Show that teacher retention is a top priority by meeting our union's demands. The district has the funds to meet this goal, and it is a reasonable and just goal that will ultimately benefit all community members, especially our students. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Pablo, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Pablo Aguilera. I'm the DI coach in the district. Y'all know who I am because I'm one of the 2 people in the district whose job is to bring up uncomfortable truths and specifically point out inequities in the district and offer strategies to build equitable systems and not just the performative actions that we have been accustomed to. The reality is that the board has actually offered proper salary increases to people for their work. The superintendent position in the past 2 years went from $265,000 base pay for Dr. Williams, $299,000 base pay for Crystal Leach in the spring, and then up to $325,000 base pay a couple months later. The superintendent position saw a $60,000 raise. That's over a 20% raise in the past couple of years. The associate superintendent position in the past couple of years also got an over 10% raise for having additional tasks added to their position. There are more examples of this at the district office, where people get more positions, more responsibilities, and their pay goes up. Now, they work hard. They got their raises. Good for them. At the same time, the past couple of years, teachers have taken on just as much, if not more, additional responsibilities as a superintendent and associate superintendent. All we are asking for is that the board respect our humanity like you have respected the humanity of the superintendent and associate superintendent. Additionally, we must also address the discrepancy between new teachers and veteran teachers. We do the same amount of work and have the same responsibilities, yet a new teacher will make $60,000 less than a veteran teacher. That shouldn't be the case. This is a remnant of the colonist hierarchy in which our educational system was founded, and also historically racist practices that were meant to discriminate against Black teachers after Brown versus Board. So let's make sure we address this as well, especially since we're trying to recruit more teachers of color. It's not going to look good when teachers of color are making a lot less than white teachers in the district. So let's just value our humanity and just stop with these performative actions and give us the raise that we've been asking for. Thank you. Appreciate it. See y'all tomorrow.
Thank you. Our last speaker on Zoom is Debelina.
Hi, good evening. I'm sitting here with my kids and grading and dinner all at once because that's what we do. You guys have heard all these good reasons as to why the district should meet SDTA's request for a 7 or 8% increase this year and 7% in the upcoming year. And I just want to tell you a bit about my personal story. So I'm a 23-year veteran teacher. I speak 4 languages. I can teach math and science, pretty much every subject within the sciences. I've been a district science coach and have tons of experience. 5 years ago, due to very unfortunate circumstances, I became a single mom. And as a result, I have to live month to month to make ends meet, which is not okay, given that we work really hard day to day to meet the needs of our students, the needs of our parents in the community, and the community at large, which is much more than students. So you've heard all the data, you've heard all the reasons, and you have this. And again, it would be different if the district didn't have money, but there's a massive surplus. And if you don't spend it on the educators, what is your intention? What do you plan to spend it on that's going to be better spent so that the impact goes directly back to the classroom? I urge you to do the right thing. You know what the right thing is. And I think that you don't know our stories, which is why you haven't done it so far. But we do. Most of us are living month to month at best, especially if we don't have a partner who is bringing in a ton of money, Bay Area standards. So we urge you to do the right thing and meet the SDDA requests for the cost of living and a salary increase. Thank you.
Thank you. To the chair, that concludes public comments.
Okay. Thank you, Laura, for walking us through the public comment. The next item on the agenda is item 9, Board of Trustees correspondence. And I was going to try to summarize the letter that we received from the county, but it's easier to just read it. It's just 3 short paragraphs. This is received from the San Mateo County Office of Education. The County Superintendent of Schools Office has reviewed the 2022-23 unaudited actuals financial reports of Sequoia Union High School District, Everest Public High School, Summit Preparatory Charter High School, and KIPP Esperanza High School in accordance with Education Code 42100 and transmitted the reports to the California Department of Education. As authorizing agency for Everest Public High School, Summit Preparatory Charter High School, and KIPP Esperanza High School, the district is encouraged to continue to exercise its due diligence in monitoring the budget and financial reports of the charter schools. Encloses a copy of the signed school district and charter school certifications for your records. We're also providing with the district's financial profile, which is updated with the 2022-23 unaudited actuals and 2023-24 adopted budget data. As you can see, it would have been hard to summarize.
Oh, did we receive an email or with that? Because I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, it was just came to me, which is why I reported it out as board correspondence. It was
When?
addressed to board president.
Oh.
So that's why this is how I notify everybody of it. Sure. Would you mind sending that to the board later? Thank you. Next is Board of Trustees, Superintendent comments, and committee reports. Anybody have anything they'd like to report? You want to start, Sophic, or you want to? Okay, you want to start, Karen?
Several things. First of all, Rich and I attended the Redwood City Together meeting, and I'm happy to say there's usually a rotation of leadership. And so Sequoia Union High School District will be taking that job over. So our superintendent will be attending the executive meetings, and Rich and I will be co-leading the general meetings. And we got an update on the work that was done for Welcoming Week. There were a lot of fantastic activities, and now the group is working on United Against Hate Week. One of the things I didn't get to share at the meeting, but I'll share with all of you. One of the things that I've been involved in is the last couple of years is, pardon me? One of the things that I've been involved in is making the United Against Hate posters. And when I walk around the district, especially at Sequoia High School, I see those posters hung all year. So makes me very proud. We also heard an update on the PACE program. So that was the program for youth that came out of a lot of young people riding bikes in downtown Redwood City, and the executive director, Raphael, and others gathered the youth together to talk about alternative activities that they could be doing. And that what we heard is that a lot of our Sequoia High School students are part of that program, and it's been helping with attendance and academics. And I'm really grateful that we have that partnership. I think all of the board members attended the CSBA Road Show. So that was a nice event on Monday night, I think. And see if I can read my notes here. I also attended the student-led sustainability meeting. And once again, I'm very impressed with what the students are trying to do. I'm constantly learning about how we can do more in the effort of food waste, recycling, composting, and food service solutions that could save a lot of waste. So I did pass on my notes from that meeting to our superintendent. And let's see, last thing, I think all board members attended the Menlo Atherton football game. So we were happy to be invited to that. And I was very impressed with how community comes together for that event, standing room only, and a very exciting game. So that was fun. That's it.
I'll go next. Let's see, I had a chance to participate in this working waterfront tour of the Port of Redwood City. So that was very interesting. So we all got onto a Marine Science Institute boat. So they actually had just finished a field trip earlier in the day. So they had some specimens that the middle school students grabbed up from the bay, including a pretty large shark that was struggling to circle around in the tank that it was in. But we asked, and yes, they do get released at the end of the day. It was like Superintendent Leach's face is like, what? Animal cruelty? No. But it was interesting because usually when you drive down Seaport, you don't really see a whole lot. But when you're on the boat, you actually see the different companies at the port doing a lot of different things. So there were speakers that were talking about, how much carbon footprint they're reducing just by having things go by train and over the water, and the fact that they're a major recycling hub and they're sending, breaking down construction materials into its parts, and even broken down cars. They're broken down somewhere else. I checked. They're not broken down at the Port of Redwood City, but it goes there for then recycling purposes. So I was thinking, actually, with the sustainability committee, there's a lot of opportunities to partner and actually understand that component of how Redwood City is actually contributing to the recycling movement, and especially if we're starting to embark on facilities upgrades, there's potentially opportunities to kind of follow the material to its end state as we remove it from our campuses. It might be a good learning experiment. And then they do have, they're always looking for opportunities to partner more from a trades perspective. So that's something that we can take a look at as well. And then the following week, I had a chance to go to a SAMCETA event. So that's the San Mateo Economic Development Association. And it was called Redefining the Narrative. So this is like a new series to educate the community on important topics within San Mateo County. And they chose two different topics that would appeal to different audiences, which I thought was pretty strategic. So the first one was how YouTube works, youth online safety and mental health. So that got all the school board members and education people coming. And then the second topic was life science labs, ensuring safety and promoting essential disease research. So that got all the city council members, county representatives over. But it was very interesting to learn some of the things that companies were trying to do to address addiction and to social media and how they're monitoring it, and things that they're putting into place. Like if a student or anyone, actually, not just students, types in something that relates to suicide or suicide ideation, they'll flash up contact information for emergency phone numbers and that kind of thing, and puts together legitimate resources for help, right? And not pass on things that are not research based. So they have this whole criteria, but it's stuff that a lot of people didn't know. And I think SAMCETA's planning on doing more of these types of things. And who knows, maybe there is an opportunity for an educated oriented topic if we nudge them that way and give them suggestions. And then the last thing I'll mention is that last Thursday, BRSSD, Belmont Redwood Shores, had their trustee area public hearing number 2. So for those of you who don't know, they're moving from at-large elections to trustee areas, and now they've narrowed down the options to 2 potential options, and they're going to tweak it a little further, and they plan to vote on it in December. And it's interesting hearing the different perspectives, because there's the desire to not split up school communities too much. Like, you know, there was one school community that was split into 3, and it's like, whoa, that's too much, because none of the other school communities are split up that much. But then Redwood Shores is in a unique position where there's different dynamics, even though there's 2 schools there. It's also kind of a very large community, so you could potentially split that into 3, but then does that dilute it too much? So there's a lot of back and forth of how to keep communities of interest together. But again, there was a reference to Sequoia Union High School District and how we did our trustee area lineups, and they see that as a good practice of making sure that each trustee had constituents that were part of 2 or more schools, right? To make sure that it's not a single school kind of candidate that comes up. So that's it.
I'm happy to go next. So, yeah, like Trustee Dubois said, it was fun to attend the CSBA Roadshow and also the MA homecoming football game. I think it was great at both those events to talk to people around San Mateo County, and especially at the MA football game, parents, and hear what our community was really thinking. Another event that I actually got to attend, and thanks to the Menlo Park City School District for really helping to put this together, was the MA 8th grade football night. And I think it was a great way to try to bring 8th graders together and introduce them to, you know, what being a student at MA was. I know there were a decent number of 8th graders who came, and I'm sure that next year, you know, the event can be even bigger and even better, and really helping, you know, unite the diverse group of students who come to MA every year. The only last thing I'd also like to mention is like to personally thank the students of the Menlo Atherton Leo Club for fundraising for the Israeli Red Cross. I know there were some issues about happened, but I'd really like to appreciate the students for taking the advantage to do something good in, you know, the crisis that's affecting hundreds of thousands of people in the Middle East, and really, you know, do whatever they can to try to make it better. So I'm really grateful that these students stepped up in such a way.
All right. I have my notes. Oh, yes, here I am. Because I'm also trying to read my notes, which is not always an easy thing. All right. Thank you, Laura. I wanted to take this moment to congratulate Carmod on their girls flag football game. It was outstanding. Very few the families that were there to support the girls, and I hope that it grows. I was really feeling that, and how quickly the game went as well. It's like 20-minute quarters. And only 2. So it was quite interesting. And just thinking about my own child who played football, and that was short-lived, and now a team captain or team manager, that would have been very helpful for equity and inclusion of girls who want to play football, although MA always had people on the football team. So I'm excited about that. The other piece I want to acknowledge is that I talked to about 3 parents over the last week and a couple of teachers about their experiences, their concerns, their celebrations, and just really impressed with some of our families that are not coming to the meetings, but feeling really passionate about some of the subjects that we've talked about, and trying to encourage them to share their stories as much as possible. I'm not soliciting stories, but stories are coming my way around student wellness, academic pressure, continuing with the road that we're on around supporting kids' whole person and having access to all kinds of classes, and particularly ones that they hadn't had access to. And also hearing a couple of stories about students who actually went through some of our leveling classes that we've been doing around English, and how much that has helped them as they have more of a diverse mindset. They're understanding different students from different backgrounds and actually seeing it as a benefit for themselves, as a part of growth, not just the person, not just addressing the diversity issue, but really saying, hold up, this is helping me with tools that I need for college. And parents are saying that the parents that have contacted me, I don't know if they're contacted anybody else. We get so many emails, but so that's been impressive to me. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is I'm a little concerned about teacher wellness right now, given all the conversations we've had, and just want to make sure our teachers and our staff are okay, given, this is a stressful time in the news, and it just brought back a lot of things that we dealt with in COVID that was well beyond the environment. But really the health and the environment, but some of the other social issues that were happening and how that impacted teachers' ability to show up in ways that were helpful for themselves and for the students. And so that's coming up for me. And then the last thing, I wanted to read something. It came out the blue, but our principal, Sean Priest at Sequoia, wrote something. I thought I would read it for us because I thought it was quite helpful. The newsletters are awesome. I've been reading all of them and commenting back if I felt inspired to. But he said, recently, educational law adopted a new term as a standard when referring to students who have traditionally been labeled as at-risk, underserved, underprivileged, under-resourced. Moving forward, the terms are at promise. And this could be the norm. Some might be quick to air their frustration with this kind of semantic hand-wringling, particularly in conversation about social justice and equity. And I get that. Language matters, but can also be vexing. We sort and categorize and label groups of students in an attempt to move forward towards a more just outcome, but in doing so, may reinforce existing outcomes. This paradox is a source of struggle, which perhaps the root of frustration and will, for the example, shift from English language learners to emerging multilingual learners. And this will lead to improved outcomes, centering their strengths and their experiences of our students. And so he also said something, and I want to end on this note. He said that labels can help shift our orientation from deficit thinking to asset thinking. We would also be wary of how they might simultaneously activate unconscious bias, and especially the ones that live in the blind spot of privilege. I believe strongly, and I agree with him, that the opportunity through high quality education is a basic human right. I believe there is no greater responsibility in the role as a principal than to protect and champion that right. But I'm not a white male who has lived his life amongst entirely free from economic instability. And when I found myself in a position of language learners or ethnic minority, it's been by choice, and I've had to return the ticket in hand. I have remembered this often, likewise, to keep my mind and heart open, especially when my assumptions are challenged. While we continue to be directed to compare outcomes among subgroups and diverse communities, I hope also we can also inspire to broader, more creative, affirming ideas about what success looks like for students we serve together. And so that stood out for me this week. It just made me want to cry because I think language is not my gifting as far as like this writing that he does, but it hit home for me that he talked about this. And for the last few weeks, even though we've championed people and said, I'm glad that we have had a civil conversation. I actually talked to Crystal about this because I've been having a lot of feelings that even though things were talked about in a very polite way, there were still microaggressions. And microaggressions towards people who are in certain groups or have certain learners in their home, the things that are invisible, microaggressions are like 1,000 paper cuts. And so even though I'm excited that we got a lot of voices out here, for a person who's in the community and for the district that is often put on the pedestal of they're not ready, they shouldn't be in the classes, inflating grades about what they're doing, it felt very disrespectful in some ways, the language that was used. And I struggle because I think it's hard to come up with language, especially when in our legal language of education, there's certain ways we have to talk because the law don't change as quickly as the way we want to. But when I read this, I felt a humility that we're all still growing, that we're a learning organization, but labels, language matters. And so speak the words is what we believe. And I just want to say, I believe in what he's saying, that our labels sometimes mislabel people and mislabel opportunities and mislabel the things you can't see. And so when I read this, I just wanted to applaud him. I wanted to applaud Mr. Luskuth and his last letter around some of the environmental stuff that's happening at MA. And I really want to take a time to say to Ms. Kennel, thank you for your letter as a Jewish woman and expressing your concerns and creating a no hate zone at Tide. My hope and prayer is that as a district, we say no hate too. So thank you.
Over the past, let's see, couple of weeks from the study session, a couple weeks ago, we're still recovering from that late night. We had teachers here till 1 o'clock in the morning. Since then, I've had the privilege to be invited. I do like to be invited places. Yes, I know I can show up, but it makes me feel better to be invited. So I was invited to the Sequoia homecoming game. And Bonnie Hansen, who's definitely still very much a rock star on that campus, came with me. And during that time, I had an opportunity to spend more time with teachers. Last Friday, I was at the Woodside homecoming, and I had more opportunity to spend time with teachers. Since then, I visited classrooms, and so teachers have been very much in my inner circle these last few weeks, all for good reasons. And tonight, more of you came out with signs. And as I said before, I see you and I see your signs, and I do read them. And I do appreciate you all. And I'm very hopeful for when we go back to the table on Friday. So I just want you to know that I do hear the words that you are saying. I know often we it's like, where's the action? Where's the action? That time will come to have that conversation. But until then, I do see you. I see you when I go into your classrooms. I see you at the football games, volunteering or getting credit for serving, checking bathrooms. And I do appreciate you. So thank you.
Okay, I'd like to comment about the subject of the Sequoia Union High School District's course offerings. I'm going to make two statements about which I hope we all agree. We want all families in our district boundaries who have children approaching high school age to believe that the Sequoia Union High School District schools are the best choice for them. We want all families with students in Sequoia Union High School District schools and all students in Sequoia Union High School District schools to believe that each of their 4 years in this district provided them with an appropriate level of academic challenge. There are regions in our state where residents with school-age children either send their children to private school or move. We should want our region to be one that people move to because of our schools, not from, because they believe that our schools won't meet their students' needs. I spent a lot of time talking about this issue with a wide range of people over the last several months. And I recognize that all of the administrators and most of the teachers who have come forward have spoken in favor of the current set of course offerings at each of the schools. even though the offerings at the different schools are different from each other. Some parents prefer the current offerings to remain unchanged. Many parents are somewhat neutral. That is, they believe their students will be fine either way. However, I think we must acknowledge that we've heard from a large number of district parents and students that they believe more course choices would better meet their academic needs than the current set of course choices does. I've spoken directly with several families in which either the parents, older children, or in some cases, both the parents and older children attended our district schools. And because of the reduction in course choices over the last several years, they are now sending or trying to send their high school age students to private school. These families were supporters of our schools, and now we have lost their support. Some of the people wanting more choice are concerned about the reduction in honors options in 9th grade and in the sciences and want more challenge. Others are concerned about wanting more options that are not as difficult as AP classes, but more challenging than the current non-AP course offerings. If our district does not offer more course choices, then families wanting more course choices will seek alternatives. To me, this debate and discussion that we're having hinges on how and how much each of us believes that our course offerings impact the public's perceptions of our schools, and how much each of us believes that the public perceptions of our schools in the medium or long term will have an impact on our schools. I believe that our course offerings do impact the public's perception of our schools. And I believe that the public's perception of our schools, if it's not strong, that the perception will have a negative impact on our schools as families seek alternatives. We, this board, should be transparent. The public should know where we stand on this issue. At our last meeting, our superintendent said what she was going to do absent board direction. As of right now, we have not provided any board direction. And if we do not give board direction at our next meeting, then it will be too late for us to provide any direction that can impact next academic year. We should consider a position in favor of maximum choice for students in every major subject area at all 4 of our large schools in each of the 4 years that students are with us. If the position of maximum choice does not have board support, we should consider other ideas. One other idea we could consider is to have one of our 4 large schools have a philosophy of maximizing choice, while the other schools continue with their current offerings. We can know about the choice school and transfer that school if they prefer to attend a school with more choice, and transfer away from that school if they prefer less choice. With this approach, families for whom having greater choice in course selection is an important issue will have an option that meets their objective, while the current set of course offerings will remain available to everyone. Another thing to consider is to look at our graduation requirements and see if there are any areas where the district requirements exceed state requirements. If our district has requirements that this board could choose to reduce, then the result would be room in the student schedule for more choice. For example, the recent California School Board Association magazine included an article about the California requirement for ethnic studies. According to the article, the state allows the course that meets the ethnic studies requirement to also meet some other requirement. The example of the magazine is English. That is, the magazine article states that one class can meet both an English requirement and the ethnic studies requirement. If our district did this, there could likely be a way for students to have an elective during 9th grade. That elective could be one that adds rigor, or, as Carrie has said many times, that she would prefer students could consider a class in the arts during 9th grade if there's an elective option. There's a lot that we should consider and discuss, and during our future agenda items later tonight, I will recommend that we have course offerings and graduation requirements as a discussion with possible action at our next meeting.
Are we allowed to comment on your letter? Is that part of board comment?
We can't have a discussion. The next item is student trustee comments.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I talked more about this 2 weeks ago, but I just want to reaffirm Zahara and I's, along with the rest of the student body's appreciation for the work of the teachers and acknowledgement and support for the teachers' demands. Associate Superintendent Hansen and I were able to together hold down the fort for the first Student Advisory Council on October 17th. It went great. We had a total turnout of 20 students at the actual meeting. We had 50 total signups, but I received a lot of emails telling me they couldn't make this one, but will be there in the future. And while the total turnout was good, I do want to mention that there wasn't as equal of a representation of each school as I hoped for. And I would love to see more, and I'm striving to recruit more students from East Palo Alto Academy, Sequoia, Woodside, and Tide at future Student Advisory Council meetings. At the Student Advisory Council meeting, we focused on problems that students thought were occurring within the district and wanted to be on the agenda for future Student Advisory Council meetings. And the highlights from there was translation from English to Spanish for ESL learners, primarily at Woodside and Sequoia. Some students expressed frustration at their school sites' lack of attention on current events. Some students expressed frustration at extremely dirty and unusable facilities across most of the sites, as well as vandalism across a lot of the sites. Further, we then asked students at the Student Advisory Council meeting on a couple of different questions, and their answers were, first of all, on the school-sponsored computer situation in the district. A lot of students, while they appreciate the investment the district has made in those computers, a lot of students, again, voice their frustration with the quality and point out potential inequities between students that are able to bring their own computer to school compared to students that have to use the school-sponsored devices that aren't in as good of condition as the computers that students bring to school. Further, students mentioned that the transition from 8th to 9th grade is tough for a lot of students across the district, likely because we aren't unified with middle schools, and expressed that they would like to see a lot more info nights that are better structured and more critical. Further, we were running out of time, but I wanted to ask, along with after Superintendent Leach's question about the food situation that was brought up, I think a couple of weeks ago. And while all students expressed their immense appreciation for the food and kitchen staff across the school district, when asked whether they think that the food system should be revised across the school district, there was a unanimous yes. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next Student Advisory Council meeting to better flesh out proposed solutions by students for all of these problems. And also thank you, Laura, for Zahara and I's jackets. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Okay, next we have comments from Sequoia District Teachers Association.
Good evening. I got so caught up on everybody else's comments, I forgot that I was supposed to say something. And I found myself sitting there, thinking about the many implications of Trustee Ginn's comments and what it would mean functionally to have as much choice as we could offer students. Every new class that you introduce is a singleton that a teacher has to teach until there's 2 sections of it, and then maybe 3 sections. And the more classes you have, the more chances that either you have one teacher teaching a specific class and they have no one to collaborate with, no one to get those new ideas, no one to cross-pollinate with, or you have everyone teaching lots of classes, which means teachers don't have time to plan appropriate, amazing curriculum and are dealing with, just staying a day ahead. I have a student in my class this year who she's a junior in Spanish 1, and she wanted me to understand that it wasn't because she hadn't been interested in taking foreign language. It's because she started out in another state where they didn't let freshmen take foreign language. And then in her sophomore year, she was in Las Vegas. And there she tried to take Spanish, but she said to me, Miss Salvatore, the poor guy, he didn't even speak Spanish. And so he was learning it, and he was just a day ahead of us, and they didn't even pay him more. And that paradigm was amazing to me. Like, I would think, oh, you pay for experience and expertise. And her concept was his job was so much harder because he was having to learn everything and then turn around and answer 35 students' questions the next day on that topic, that he should have been paid more. The more choice you have, the more different levels, the more situations you will have where a teacher is teaching something for the first time alone. That's not what our freshmen need. Our freshmen need solid curriculum planned by groups of teachers who are working together so that they can deliver that curriculum with their eyes shut, and they can open their eyes and pay more attention to the kids, to the human beings in front of them. And they can continue making that curriculum better because they stay together and work together year after year. So if the board decides to agendize that, you'll have a whole bunch of teachers here explaining to you that while we want our students to have a lot of options and to find their passion in high school, if it's there, what we don't want to do is create a situation where there's so much on your buffet plate, you can't taste any of what's there. Thank you.
Do we have any comments on the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees? Okay, the next item is approval of the consent agenda. Board action to approve the following items is taken simultaneously with one motion, which is not debatable and requires a unanimous roll call vote for passage. The action indicated on each item is deemed to have been considered in full and action taken as worded therein. Only members of the board and the superintendent may remove items from the consent agenda. Members of the public may provide comments at the start of the consent agenda, which may convince a board member or the superintendent to remove an item for further discussion. The motion, when there should be one, is to waive the reading of the consent agenda, accept the reports, adopt the resolutions, and approve other items. But this time I'll ask if there's any comments about consent agenda items. If you're in the Zoom audience and have a comment about any of the consent agenda items, please raise your hand. And if you're live audience and would like to comment, please turn in a comment card. Hey, Laura, how many cards do we have?
I have one card on 6 items.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Abby Corman.
Good evening, board. I'm actually speaking tonight on only 3 items after checking in with my SDTA president. I'm speaking tonight on agenda items 13.12, 13.15, and 13.20. As I know, these positions are certificated positions that our district could be hiring in-house and not contracting out. Tonight, I'm not speaking against these positions in general, as I believe they're very valuable. And in fact, you've heard me speak to the need of having therapists and mental health supports on our campuses for the past 3 years. I am objecting to the fact that these positions are being contracted out to folks who may or may not be a part of our community. I'm concerned they're contracted and these folks won't be with us long-term to build community and really get to know our school, our students, and our systems because they're temporary hires. With this in mind, it's frustrating to me as a teacher who's dedicated her heart and so much time to this community to see these temporary hires come in making more than I do in a lot of the cases. In fact, the price tag of these just 3, I revised my numbers, these 3 consent items just tonight, not including any other contract from the past or that you will improve in the future, in second quarter, mind you, comes in at $1,639,095. These 3 consent contracts. I personally believe that it's not only this late in the school year to fill positions, but we're getting a lower return on investment for contractors because they may leave. I also know that these contractors sometimes face obstacles to accessing our student info, as they're not SEQ staff members. They face extra hurdles in serving our students. I know in our LCAP, Assistant Superintendent of HR Beal outlined a revision of our recruitment, hiring, and retention process. And I asked last meeting and have not yet heard what new steps and innovations to address the unfilled position were taken this school year that can be shared. I know we're all interested in fiscal responsibility, and it feels to me that too frequently we're hiring external contractors, often for more money than we're paying our own staff. I asked last meeting and will continue to ask until I hear otherwise, is our long-term vision to have these positions fully staffed? Or do we plan to continue to hire this many contracts for this much money, over $1.5 million every year? Did you see how many contracted teachers were here asking to be seen and valued, who probably rent in this area like I do, where half of my paycheck goes to my rent? I counted over 70 people in person. Please focus on us. What is your plan to hire and retain us?
Thank you.
Okay, would any board member or would the superintendent like to pull any items from the consent agenda?
Yeah, 13.10.
Okay, any others?
I had a question about 13.9. Was that modified or should I bring that up? Oh, it was modified. Okay.
Do you wish to pull and discuss, or you're good? Hey. Okay. Any others? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda other than item 13.10, which we'll act on separately? Trustee Dubois made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote.
Student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
trustee Dubois, vice president Stevenson, president Ginn.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, now we move to 1310. Sophic, you wanted to say something about this?
Yeah, see, I maybe I was confused, but I thought we had a discussion last time with the board. I personally am uncomfortable with course proposals being on consent, and I think in the spirit of transparency, we should vote on course proposals individually. Mainly because sometimes they do have unintended consequences that, might not be as apparent. So I do think with some of the things going on that course proposals should not be on consent agenda, and that's something that I will continue to do in the future. I have nothing against these courses at all. I was happy to talk to Assistant Superintendent Hanson about some of them and clarify some questions, and I think they're great that we have more choice offered to our students, both in terms of computer science and graphic and interactive design at Tide, but I do not feel comfortable voting on courses on course approvals on consent.
Just to clarify, is it your opinion that we should vote on course proposals at all, or that we should not even see
No,
them?
we should, but they shouldn't be on consent.
And I think the last discussion was that we weren't going to do that, or we need to have a discussion. So one person may recommend it, but we need to have a vote, and this is not an action vote on a
Correct.
particular procedure.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just getting clarity whether he had said whether he was interested in acting on it separately or not acting at all. That was just what I was getting clarity on. Okay, do you want to make a motion to approve, Sophic?
Sure. Are we approving them individually?
It's a single item, 1310. If you want to make 4 separate motions, you can, or you can make one motion to approve the 4 courses.
Just for the record on this one, the Ed Code actually does not require boards to approve individual courses at all. So you could vote on them in lump. You could never vote on individual courses. You could do what Trustee Nori is suggesting. You could keep them on consent. The board is charged with courses of study. So we've got the California 130 credits required for graduation in specific classes. And then beyond that, the board has the duty of saying, no, we're gonna ask students to take, for instance, 4 years of English, because that's what you need for UCA through G. Or we are gonna ask students to take an extra year of social studies because we see the value in that. But how you decide to approve these courses, there's nothing about it in our own board policy that says you approve courses. So how you choose to do that is up to you. The board certainly can approve courses.
Rich.
So if we want to, I want a clarifying question. If we did have an interest in approving courses going forward, that would mean we need to make a policy change?
No, I mean, well, I guess you could have it in policy if you wanted to, but I'm
struggling with this because we are talking about this one course.
It's actually 4 courses.
4 courses. It's one action. This is a different discussion about how we're going to approve courses later. And I would think that that would be a future agenda item that's put in the parking lot. But I feel like we're taking up time, no offense, taking up time to talk about one person's recommendation, which should be a future item. And we're trying to approve a course so that we can move on with the agenda.
I was asking a clarifying question about the statement that she had made.
Yeah, and
We can talk about it in future agenda
and
items. It's
and
fine.
you shared that it's one agenda item because you're helping us hold the agenda, make sure we're Brown Act compliant. And what do we need to do?
So Sophic has the option of making a motion to approve one course at a time or to approve all 4 courses as a block.
I mean, we can approve all of them at once. Like, I don't have any issue with that. So I'll move to approve the 4 courses.
Okay, so Sophic's made a motion to approve 1310. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
trustee Dubois, Vice President Stevenson, President Ginn.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, that concludes our consent agenda. The next is the information item, strategic plan update.
Superintendent, any?
Yes, thank you. I hear
Hi.
a voice in the stars. We do have our consultant Matui with us from Performance Fact to give us an update on where we are thus far on our strategic plan. I'm glad you made it home safely. He was just
Thank you.
with us in our study session from 3 to 4:30. So we are looking forward to your recap of the process thus far.
Thank you. And Rose is on the line also. We're going to tag team. Thanks for giving us a chance to do an update. This update is as of the 20th. I'll do the setting the stage, talk about what we've done so far in a calendar sense, and then Rose will take us through some of the content. So on the next slide, it's a record of the engagement so far. This is as of the 16th of October, I believe. 114 participants. We've had 16 meetings and about 56 meeting hours since we started in about 2 months ago. On the next page, there's several meetings that have taken place that are not reflected in the data on the previous slide. Yesterday, there was a meeting with the DLAC team. And earlier this afternoon, I had a work session with the board. By the end of next week, we have 3 events planned, one with the core planning team. You may recall that the core planning team is the most diverse in terms of representation of all the teams that we're working with. That will be their 5th 4-hour meeting. And also next week on Tuesday, we'll have the next meeting with the district leadership team, which includes building level administrators. And also next week is another session number 3 with students, what we call the student voice team that Rose facilitates. Well before Thanksgiving, we expect to have met with the PAC, one meeting with the instructional focus team, which is mostly teachers and other instructional folks. Also before Thanksgiving, at least one community forum and some feedback from some of the sites. So just on next slide. This is the planning framework. When we are done, you can think of the products in 3 parts. Part 1 will be an articulation of the outcomes we want for all students. Part 2 will be what needs to happen around instruction, because as we've said repeatedly, the real magic in learning happens when student, teacher, and content come together. So in our model, it's the quality of instruction, basically teachers and teaching that make the most difference in student learning. That's why we elevate the instruction or the role of teachers and teaching to a higher level than the infrastructure, which is in circle number 3. So all 3 components will be in the finished document. And we'll take you through in a few seconds where we are. If you look on the screen in the very far right, you see the color coded 1, 2. 1 means not yet started. 2 means it's in progress. And when it's done, it will be 3. Before Thanksgiving, half of these will have turned green before the Thanksgiving break. So I'm going to ask Rose to take over and just give you highlights of some of the products so far. Yeah. Nothing is final until it's all done. So all of this is just in draft form. Thanks.
Yeah, so what we're going to share is a couple of things. So a lot of the work that we do, we start our conversations with a database for our teams with the intention that it supports a conversation, both small and whole group, around ideas that we can begin to align around. And so one of the things that we talked about is sorry, I'm moving my Zoom things around, the core values. And so this is just an example of the database that we're working with and some of the initial results. The board in particular is working on the core values, and you can see a little bit about the ideas that they are circling around. This is a work in progress. Mutu was there earlier today to continue to get that draft ready. We don't have a draft at this time, but you can see some of the ideas that we are circling around for the core values. Our teams also did a similar process for the portrait of a graduate. So the portrait of a graduate is part of that circle number 1, where we focus on students and what is our vision for students. You can see here 3 different teams who engaged in the work and some of the ideas that they are circling around. So this is the database. You can see, you know, critical thinker and problem solver surfacing to the top, and also some common ideas around healthy mind and body. Teams then take the conversation that we have whole and small group and begin to flush out in an articulation of the portrait of a graduate. And so here you can see that the portrait of a Sequoia Union High School graduate, and again, this is a draft that's getting feedback on. They are effective communicators and collaborators. They have personal wellness. They are responsible and persistent learners. They are socially just and community-centered. They are creative and adaptive, critical thinkers, and they are post-secondary ready. And then some attributes to begin to further define what we mean by that. Another kind of vision for student success, right? Part of that circle number 1 is around the goals for students. And so again, we start with a database to support the conversation and see where we have alignment and common ideas. You can see 4 different teams engaged in this work, and there's some similar ideas percolating to the top. Those teams then went and drafted, each team drafted their own goal statements. So you can see the instructional focus team in column number 1 and the 3 goals that they drafted from that conversation. You can see the core planning team in the middle and the 3 goals that they drafted, and then the district leadership team and the 3 goals that they drafted all the way over on the right. They didn't see each other's drafts. They did that all in their own conversations. Mutiu and myself took these drafts and began to consider what are the big themes that the community is beginning to align around. And we came back to the teams on October 9th with the following draft of the goals for student success. So goal number 1 could be around student safety, well-being, and connection. Goal number 2 is around student academic growth and mastery. And goal number 3 is around student readiness for college, career, and life. A little bit about the process. We then take these drafts back to the teams. The teams are, you know, discussing them, giving feedback on them. In the calendar you saw earlier, you saw a community forum with a reality check and a school forum reality check. These goals will go out and be available for you to give your feedback on in the near future. We've also been discussing what are the measures that will begin to articulate progress on those goal buckets. And again, this is just this is a draft work. You can see lots of different ideas. We will summarize it, or sorry, we will synthesize it down to 2 or 3 measures to indicate progress on the goal buckets. And the last thing to share is that was everything that we've presented so far is around circle number 1, which is what do we want for kids. Our pillars, or the building blocks, move into circle numbers 2 and 3, which organize the work of the adults. And so if circle number 1 is about the ends that we desire for kids, circle number 2 and 3 are about the means to those ends, right? So how do we as the adults organize ourselves in order to accomplish the goals? And so we organize around 4 pillars. Pillar A being about teaching and learning, pillar B being about schools can't do it alone, pillar C investing in people, pillar D bringing it all together. Our teams are just beginning this work, and so you can see here 2 drafts from the core planning team and the instructional focus team. And so working on circle number 2 and 3 is the majority of the work that we have remaining in our plan. Mutiu, anything to add on pillars or goals?
No, not at all. One hallmark we feel about approach is that the plan belongs to the district, And the best way to make sure that we will have ownership is by involving as many different voices as possible. And that's what we've attempted to do here. So again, nothing is final until it's all done. These conversations go, back and forth among the various teams. And our role is to synthesize, bring it back for your approval. Our key turning point will be the reality check sessions that are planned for between November 6th and November 17th, when we will take the draft back to every single school and every department in the district, so that every staff member and every employee gets a chance to give some feedback. And then that will be incorporated into the work of the planning teams. So we are more than happy to take your questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. Before we do questions or comments from the board, I'll just ask if there's any public comment about this information item.
I have no public comment.
Okay, seeing none, I'll ask if any board members have any questions or comments. Okay, for those who in the audience, just know that we were all together with Mutui just a few hours before this meeting started in a session, so we may have had all our questions answered there. But wanted to have this presentation at the regular meeting so that all of the attendees that regularly attend our meeting have a chance to get the update. So would you like to make any comments? Okay, so thank you so much for the information update and for all your help with us.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
You too. Good night.
Good night.
Did want to thank all the people who have participated in the strategic planning effort so far, because that is a lot of people and a lot of hours. So just wanted to send my thank you out there. It's really appreciated.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Good night. The next item, we have an action item. Approval of resolution number 003, designation of district representative for state allocation board administered programs by roll call vote. So just ask if anybody, we had information in our packets about this. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or if you're ready to vote, then I ask for a motion. Well, first I'll just give a moment to see if anyone has any comments or questions. Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 15.1?
I'll move to approve.
A second.
Student trustee Uriep,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
trustee Dubois, Vice President Stevenson,
Yes.
President Ginn.
Yes.
Motion adopted.
Okay.
5-0.
Thank you. Next is action item 15.2, adoption of resolution number 005, designating individuals authorized to sign orders for Sequoia Union High School District by roll call vote. I guess I'll ask again if anybody, well, not again, on this item as well, if anybody has any questions or comments based on the information in the board packet. And I assume we have no public comment.
No public comment.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 15.2?
I move to approve.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Student trustee Uriep,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
Yes.
Vice President Stevenson, President Ginn.
Yes.
Motion adopted 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, the next is future agenda items. Does anybody have anything that you bring up for a future agenda item? Okay, Carrie?
The county office letter is reminding me that we probably should have charter school presentations, and we were going to talk about how we can have better oversight of charter schools. So I don't know if we're really doing that, so that should be a future. The board has to talk about it though.
Well, I think last year, I think yearly we have, the past couple of years, we've had our charter schools come and make some presentations. Is it?
And we also had talked about even doing visits. I don't think we've had presentation.
You guys have recently done visits to some charter schools, not all together. I know that Bonnie went with some of you. You couldn't all go together. We would have had to agendize it. So we can do an inventory of where you want to go and we can schedule that. But I think you visited some charter schools last year. You could go again.
I thought we were going to talk about doing something more official, just to make
Oh.
sure it's really the board doing our oversight. And yeah, maybe that would be helpful to, because I don't think we've heard from Rocket Ship, and it doesn't seem like we've, and like.
Let me do some exploring and see who we've had present and when they presented and when you guys visited, and then we can go from there. Does that sound good? Okay.
Any other future agenda items? Okay, I have a couple. One, I'm going to recommend that at our next meeting that we put board reorganization as a discussion only item, because the meeting after that is when we'll be doing the reorganization. And that way we can have a chance to talk about committees, if we want to add committees or remove committees, but not have it be where you have to make the decision minutes after we have the discussion. It also enables, should people want to talk amongst themselves, you could legally talk to one person before that meeting and another person after that meeting about whatever related to that meeting. So I just think that'd be helpful, because I know Sophic, you have some ideas for possibly creating some new committees, and that way we can just all think about how we might want to load the committees that we'll be making in December, but just having it as a discussion item in November. Anybody object to that?
Only if we could know the committees that people are recommending beforehand, because I think it's hard to have a discussion without knowing what the agenda item is. Actual
Okay,
committee-
yeah, it'd be even harder if we were trying to actually appoint people to the same meeting, which is why I'm trying to
I'm just
move it up.
saying, have the discussion, but we need the information beforehand so that we can come prepared and on even. plane.
Okay, so if anybody has ideas for committees that you want to either add or remove from our current committee list, and maybe Laura, you could just recirculate our committee list to us. Anybody wants to add or remove any of the committees, to let Crystal and Laura know, so they can let us know which items have been brought up, and then it'll be discussion only in November. We won't be making any decisions, and then we'll be making decisions a month later, but just give us a chance, because I felt personally, when we're trying to do it all at once, I think it'll go a little smoother if we have a chance to talk about it in advance. And then Carrie mentioned that the Redwood City Together and us taking the co-lead position, something that is available. Now Carrie and I know all about it, and we attend all the meetings. It is open to the public, so others of you could choose to attend one of those meetings, or we could have the executive director come and present to us. It's something that he does with other of the partner organizations. But I just want to get it. So Crystal, Carrie, and I know all about it, because we go to a whole bunch of the meetings. So it's just that the other three of you think that'd be useful. And Carrie, go ahead and say something.
I just wanted to say that Redwood City School District just had Raphael present, and they thought his presentation was very much worth their time, because he talks about the partnerships and yeah, I would strongly recommend that we do it.
Okay, so another potential future agenda item would be what I learned today is that the board does not need to approve course offerings, which was news to me. I think that we would potentially have a possibility of having a board policy that we will vote on new courses or some other policy related to it. But it was news to me that, in fact, courses could be created without us necessarily ever seeing them. So I don't know if there's interest from the board of discussing whether or not we modify any policies around this, or if you want to think about it and talk about it later, or where you are on this topic, if anybody has any thoughts.
Would that belong in the parking lot kind of thing for a future
Sure.
retreat? Yeah.
Yeah, but if that would be something that you think would be was new information to me today, so I just wonder if that's something other people had an interest in discussing or not.
Sure.
I'm concerned about the timing. I'm much more interested in becoming more aligned. And we're doing the strategic plan and so many things right now. I just don't think it's a good time to bring that up. I think it just,
I think if we put it on the parking lot, then it's just, the parking lot's getting pretty big, but it's another thing that we could discuss during a future retreat. Right.
Okay. Okay, and the last item, during my comment, I expressed an interest in having a agenda item discussion with potential for action, course offerings and graduation requirements. If there are two people who support me, I'd be interested in having, requesting some amount of staff work, and the work that I'd be interested in is knowing what courses do we require of students that are not state requirements, where we might have flexibility to make a change, to open up options, just to understand where our offerings are different from what is required. When I read the CSBA article and learned that there's a possibility of having the ethnic studies class also meet another requirement, that's different from what our policies say. So it's something that we could choose to do, but it would be a change to our policies and it would be in line with state law. And I'm interested to just understand what the other options are, if there are any, where what we currently require students to take is more restrictive, or in some way, most students take 6 courses per year for 4 years. They have 24 courses or 48 semesters, depending on how you look at it. If we could free up one or more of those for them to have an arts class or any other class, it might enable students to have more choice it would open up opportunities for choice. So I'm interested to just know what requirements we have that are beyond what the state requires, just to be aware of it. But that would require staff work and would take 2 people to be interested in knowing that.
Rich, I have some questions around this. What I'm really struggling with right now is different ways that we're talking about choices, but not talking about it in the context of our community, in the sense of the 8,000 kids that we have and the vast diversity that we have. And so when I think of that, I'm thinking about a lot of the students that I haven't been on past boards that have made decisions and strives towards improving outcomes and doing equitable outcomes for all kids. And so when I'm hearing this, I'm getting really triggered on a couple of different things that I'm really struggling with. And it may be a separate discussion, but really around race and equity and status, socioeconomic status, and what is our belief around that as it fits into this discussion, as it fits into the course discussion, as we talk about, we're going to have a discussion around heterogeneous classes again. And I am really struggling because the silent message that I'm getting, whether it's intentional or unintentional, is whether or not certain kids belong in our district and whether or not we're going to serve them. And so I'm really struggling, and I'm just being honest, and I'm sorry it's in the front of a board meeting. I would love to have this discussion privately, because I do know your heart is to care about public school, that you have a heart for public school, being a child of a teacher and public school teachers. But I'm really struggling on my end from the vast conversations that we've had, probably since December of last year, struggling whether or not we believe that all children can learn in our district, and whether or not we're going to show with action, as well as the kinds of discussion that we're having that won't leave out other people. And I'm really struggling as a person who has children with different learning needs, the invisible learning needs that show up in inclusion classes. I'm really struggling right now, and I just need to be transparent that it feels like another way to kind of leave students out when we talk about choices, but not talking about it in the context of who we really are as a district and who's really in our district. So I say that with earnest, not to have a battle, but just to kind of see where I'm standing from.
Okay. So the question that I'm just interested to know at the moment is, does anybody else have an interest in information? Because if not, then
I think the timing's not good right now to have the staff do extra work.
okay. So Shanice and Carrie have said no. Safik?
Sure. I mean, I'd be curious about this information too.
I mean, it's information that's good to know, but I don't think it's the right time to focus on it. Like, we really need to finish out the strategic plan and all this other stuff. And we're still doing additional work to understand the heterogeneous classes and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that this is the highest priority.
Okay, so the vote is no. So then it would be a discussion item at the next meeting if there's support for that with no district work. So we'd have no new information going into the discussion. Is anyone interested in having that discussion at our next meeting?
Oh, yeah, I'm interested in having that discussion.
President, again, sorry to interrupt. We do have one public comment card, or one card on this agenda item. 16.1. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear the public comment.
Okay, Abby Cortman.
I'm alarmed to hear this conversation trying to agendize a vote, essentially pushing to reverse the decades-long work this district has been doing that was not only supported through our in-house 121 pages of research about our students, all research literature, but as he named himself, President Ginn, is supported by almost all administrators and staff who have degrees upon degrees in education, as well as the majority of the community. He named that while the majority of our parents do not see an issue, some agree with our current courses offered, there are some who believe we need more choice. I follow SUHSD Students First, who themselves have named that there are fewer than 10% of parents who believe that this is an issue. To be clear, they're not asking for arts courses. They're arguing to bring back 9th grade AS courses. We've spent quite a long time, almost a year so far, hearing from this small group of well-resourced parents, and I hope the rest of the board uses their vote to make sure we're prioritizing all of our parents and all of our students and trust those with degrees in education. While I agree with everything SDTA president shared about the impact on teachers, I'd like to emphasize I do not think this decision would be better for our students. I urge you to remember, or maybe even go home and Google, and then read articles such as The Atlantic's quote, "The Silicon Valley Suicides. Why are so many students with bright prospects killing themselves in Palo Alto?" NBC Bay Area's article from 2018 named, quote, "Hundreds of Bay Area students put on involuntary 5150 psychiatric holds last year," subheading, "With teen suicide rates dramatically higher than they were 10 years ago, most Bay Area school districts are not tracking information that may help save student lives." Or please read ABC News's article named, quote, "Teen Train Suicide Cluster Shakes Affluent California Town. 4 Palo Alto, California teens have jumped in front of a train in 6 months." In this last article I'm referencing, they interviewed Gianna, who said she tried to take her own life because of, quote, "crushing pressure of school and expectations." She was 14 years old, still a freshman at a local high school.
Thank you.
Do you have any other public comments?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think where we were is I'd proposed an agenda item to have a discussion. As I said during my statement, we, we've given no guidance on this, in my opinion. The board has not given any guidance. And I don't feel like it's right for us to, as the governing board, to not say anything on the topic until after the deadline to make any decision. If what the decision is to do nothing, I feel like the board should say that the board's decision is to do nothing. I don't feel like it's right, my opinion, for us to just not just stay silent and then say, oh, sorry, deadline's passed. To me, that's not proper leadership and governance. If it's what people feel, then it's what we should say, and then we can move on with the decision made. I don't think it's fair to our superintendent either to not give guidance, in my opinion, which is where I believe we're at right now, that there's been a big discussion and then the meeting ended. And as you pointed out, maybe 2 meetings ago, we just ended and we didn't ever say any thoughts about it. So my opinion is that we should. And I propose some ideas for possible discussion. Other people may have very different ideas. I just put out some ideas for discussion, and I think we should have a discussion. It sounded like that SOFIC supported, and it would include zero staff work if we're doing it with no new information.
I also think that the amazing points brought up in public comment should be used to inform the board's decisions on an agenda item, and that it's helpful to discuss this issue and ultimately have the board choose at any specific direction.
I wonder if we could get any fiscal impact on, I know how much it has cost for us to have the discussion. I think I have an estimated number, but I don't think we know how much it's cost and what this change will cause in light of teachers being out. There's so many competing things that are really important right now. And I am really struggling with how are we balancing this with all the other competing needs.
So to be clear, are you requesting staff work to develop a cost estimate for something?
Just because I asked for it too, right? Or if I ask for something, we always look at what does that look like cost-wise? What does that look like for our staff? We've committed a lot of times to have this discussion. And we've had other issues that have come up around safety of kids at MA, whether it's the anti-Semitism or whether it's the Black Lives Matter, and students have had just as many people write petitions and it hasn't gotten on the agenda. So I'm really struggling with, we dealt with that differently. So I don't understand, how do we deal with this and what is the fiscal impact? What is, because I know that meeting was tough and there was a lot of things. So I do feel like I walked away without having a discussion. And I also didn't get some of our questions answered. And I think the new one I have is fiscal impact, given the amount of teachers that were here and the struggle that they're having as well.
So just to make sure I understand, Shanice, were you requesting an information item at our next meeting with that?
For a discussion, but I want to know what the impact is. I'm struggling with having this discussion because I think there's some other things we need to be talking about. And I'm struggling right now with knowing that some of our teachers are feeling like they need to leave our district, which doesn't mean we'll have teachers for more choices. So I'm struggling with this discussion, and that there's been other topics that have not been able to get agendized. So I would prefer to have this in November, late November. I think you had said that, to have the meeting and to give you some more time. I'm not for sure what your timeline is.
There's one meeting in November. There's only one meeting in November, and then the next meeting is in December.
Yeah, because I think, I don't think we're asking the staff to do any more work leading up to this discussion, right? It's kind of like the study session part 2, right? So I wasn't sure where Trustee Stevenson was going with.
I'm not.
You were
sure
saying
if we
that
should
you
have the
thought that the
discussion.
timing wasn't right.
Well, no, timing wasn't right to have staff do more investigation on President Ginn's request, right? Of what it would take to, or what additional
I'm simply asking, where do we have requirements that are in
Yeah, that
excess of the state's
Yeah,
requirements?
that was the one where
I
I
think
said
there's,
that.
my guess is there's 2 or 3 things, but I just don't know for certain.
Yeah, that's where I thought that was a lower priority item that could be done later. I don't think we need to answer that question to have the part 2 study session discussion. Right, because, yeah.
Do you
it's just-
support having a discussion at our next meeting?
I mean, I think it makes sense.
Just to be clear, what are you talking about when you say part 2 of study session? What study? what
It's just
topic?
the one that ended at 1 a.m. and then we never really deliberated. We had like a round of immediate reactions to what we heard.
It was an information item, correct? This discussion. It was,
Yeah,
oh,
it was a
it was
discussion.
checked. That check mark happened. It was supposed to be an information item. Right? But then there was a check mark put in for discussion.
The study session item was a discussion / action item.
That's right.
So I think I heard Sophic say supports having it. Amy saying supports having it, and Carrie and Shawnee's saying don't support having it.
I don't think it helps us build alignment. I think it's really hurts what we're trying to do in building trust. So I would not do it. We've got staff that has worked really hard, and we have a capable superintendent. And there was a distrust in the comments we got tonight. There's been distrust in other topics that we've had. And this board needs to build trust. Or we will accomplish nothing.
I actually agree with Carrie. I have gotten a lot of emails from families who are not showing, or individuals who are not showing up to our meeting. And I know there are some communities that are not speaking up, and some not all in my area, because of the fear of talking about this subject, as it relates to how it was done. Because actually, I struggled with the last meeting because I felt like we didn't have other voices that came out other than the ones that were rallied to be here. And wasn't done equitably across our schools and our students and our parents. And I struggled with that. I know I have a suspect how people feel about it. And I'm not quite sure if we're having a discussion about all of our students in the context of decisions. And how do you do that in thinking about all kids? And I've been struggling with that, even with our value statement, even with our strategic plan. And so it's hard for me to even have this discussion when I don't even know if our board really just and our student trustees as well believe that all students should be here, believe that our kids can learn. Because if we don't believe it, it doesn't matter what the vote is, because another subject will come up that we'll have that discussion. But if we don't know who we are around our values, it doesn't matter how many people come tapping at the door and how many people have signed a signature. There's been a couple of signatures about different things that we needed to talk about, and letters from organizations that have come up and talked to us about these things. And we have not shared all of that information. We have not determined through our strategic plan, we got closer to our values today, and I'm very proud of that. But I, as a person who is looking at the types of students and the types of learning profiles that we're talking about, we have never said as a board whether or not we believe in those students and whether or not they belong. Or we belong, because I'm a we. And we're all a we, but I don't know if we belong and we believe in those students. And so I'm struggling to have this discussion. Because I'm not sure if we're talking from the same platform of caring for all kids. So I'm really struggling with this conversation, not because the families are actually correct. We need to discuss some of the things and have more communication with our community. I've said that from the first day I was here, but I'm struggling having a conversation that leaves out information and approaches that respect people. And in my comment earlier when I read Sean's information, it came from a place because I wanted to cry, because we talked about how great that meeting was and how people came out and didn't plot and all this stuff. But the microaggressions that were said there were like 1,000 cuts, 1,000 paper cuts. And no one has said from this board, we care about all students. So I applaud Student First for standing up for their kids, but it's in lieu of saying that other kids belong here too. And I am so frustrated because we're leaders and we want to vote, but we don't want to talk about the kids belonging here. And of course, I'm feeling like I'm hitting a corner. I can see Bonnie looking at me, but I am so frustrated because we don't have a board who stands up to our kid. And we can talk about other boards, but they stood up for all kids to give them options and to say that they belong here and that we don't want inequitable outcomes anymore. And 60% is okay. And we're sitting here and we as a board have never said that. And so I'm struggling that it will continue to have a discussion that's not based off our values, and that we're just going to do something that somebody else wants us to do without knowing what our values and responsibilities are. And so I'm really struggling right now and frustrated because I've been holding it in, trying to be polite, trying to be open-minded, trying to listen, even if it doesn't feel like I'm listening, I'm taking notes. And I don't feel like we are going to have a discussion that's going to be honorable of all communities, even if we say, hey, let's finish having this discussion. But if we're not going to talk about the microaggressions and the biases that are out there, so that we don't continue to contribute to that and really have a discussion about, even if that's not what we want to do, we want to do something else than heterogeneous. But if our biases and our microaggressions and blind spots are not discussed, then we're going to make decisions that's going to hurt anyone in our community, including Students First. And so I'm really struggling, and I don't know how. I appreciate you, Rich, but I really do, because I learned so much from you, but I'm not for sure we're going to have a facilitated conversation that respects all of that, because I'm not trying to have a bunch of people rally to get here to try to get us to move and not really have a discussion. And it's really hard being in a public board meeting where people can email you and tell you you're not paying attention and all that kind of stuff, or saying that you're not listening to my side or understanding my story. It's hard to have those discussions, but I also know that we can if we really want to have a real facilitated conversation. Chalkboard, let's write it out and have a real discussion, and not a bunch of feelings, but really think about kids. During that discussion, I had pictures of kids that I knew to help me focus on the kid versus focusing on people that I don't know, and I don't know their intent, but the information and how it was delivered, again, was 1,000 paper cuts. And so I'm really struggling. And if you can tell me we're going to have a real facilitated conversation, I'm for it. But if it comes out these and those and them and they don't belong and look at their stats, it's going to be a very difficult discussion. So if you can promise me that, Rich, I love you. If you can promise me that, I'll have the discussion, but it's going to have to be on common ground.
Sure, I can go. And I'd like to echo, I agree with a lot of what trustees.
This is turning into an agenda item.
Yeah.
So we need to pause that. The question before us sounds like people have a lot to still say about this item. And I think that's why it was asked to be agendized. And so that's the question before you all. There is no staff time. It only needs 2 board members.
But can I say something quickly? I know that, we as a governing team can all have different opinions. And, I'd like to acknowledge Trustee Stevenson for sharing his perspective. I learn a lot from Trustee Stevenson every meeting, even if we don't agree. And I think the only reason I'm for this is, and I will say right now that I will respect the outcome of however the board votes and be part of that vote, even if it's something that I disagree with, and fight for it, because I do agree that we need to move on as a district. But what I do fundamentally feel, and I think there are ways to have this conversation respectfully that empowers all students, but I want to say two things. One, I think it is important, and that this is an issue that the community does deserve to know as elected officials who are here to make decisions about a school, what our perspective is. And two, that I do fundamentally believe that everyone who stays here for so long, spend 7 hours at board meetings, really does care about all students, and that no one would run for this position if they really fundamentally thought that they were just out there for their own kids. And I really do believe that the people who dedicate their time to advocate for these issues, or even us board members, really do it because we do want all our kids to succeed and all our kids to thrive. And I do not believe that anyone would be on this board if they thought otherwise. And I would be against anyone being on this board if they thought otherwise. And I will say right now that I do fundamentally believe that every single student in our district, no matter where they come from, deserves the right to have a great education. And every decision that I make is based on that belief.
So going back to the agenda setting, I mean, the reason why I think it makes sense to have the discussion is because we just have a lot of loose ends that are not tied up. And I think we need to present a unified front to the community, because there's all this stuff swirling around. There's no like concrete statement from the board. People are looking for statements. I don't want to make an individual statement. I want a statement as on behalf of the board. Okay, so that's why I want to put this on the table, have our discussion, and have kind of like some public decision, so we put this to rest and we can move on, because it doesn't have to be unified, as long as, well, unified as in we've shared all of our comments and our perspectives, and then an effective board, even if it's not a 5-0 vote, should live with the board vote and move forward as a team. And so if we have a vote that's not 5-0 and people start splintering off and fighting against the board vote, that's a dysfunctional board. And so I think if we believe that we are a healthy board, we can have that difficult discussion next week and just get everything out on the table, so we're transparent and we're not kind of going behind the scenes and everyone's talking and there's no clear direction. So that's the main reason why I want to have that discussion.
Okay, so I think you said it really well, Amy. It sounds like we have 3 people in favor and 2 opposed, so that's enough to have the agenda item. Does anybody have any other future agenda items they'd like to bring up? Okay, we're gonna
President, again, sorry,
reset.
the 3 are, just to confirm for the minutes.
Board reorganization as a discussion item. Oh, Amy and I, Sophic, Amy, and Rich in favor of having a discussion, and Shanice and Carrie opposed. And now we're gonna recess to close session.